Recently, the Nairobi Gospel Club posted this particular article, and it shows a festival in a town called Kiambu, right outside of Nairobi, of a lot of women there and not really a lot of men. And this is interesting because I've seen stuff like this in Nairobi and in Uganda. Recently, I was at the Mic Check podcast hangout, and it was good. I had a great time, but I saw something similar. A lot of women, not very many men. But this sort of thing in Kenya is not new.
Okay, so there's this report that's just been published by the Kenya National Bureau of Standards. And if you can see, it says most Kenyan men are avoiding marriage. So they've done this study, and apparently most of the men are preferring to stay single and marry later into their sunset years. And they've compared with like 10 years ago, and they'll say that back then, men at 25 would marry, but now on average, men by 29 are still, that's now like the average age of men thinking about settling down.
And I believe there are a few reasons why Kenyan men are not going out to these places. What I have noticed since I've been living in Uganda is a trend favoring women, okay? Which is not a problem because, in Uganda and Kenya, women have been, discriminated against. And so what you're seeing is not only are, the governmental programs talking about, developing women, and this is true in the Africa Free Trade Agreement. That's a big part of it. But you see a lot of international NGOs, and those NGOs are also here in Uganda, but those NGOs are greater in Kenya, largely because, cities like Nairobi are metropolitan and there's more of an international basis there. You get these NGOs favoring women and children, all right? Even the Kenyan government, you have a women economic empowerment strategy, and these women-led organizations are empowering women and responding to gender-based violence, okay? And you also see that there's a lot of women getting scholarships, trainings, business competitions, Women's International Day. So the trend is let's invest in the women. This is very similar to what you're seeing in America. But on the flip side, there is almost nothing for men. These are similar things you see in club nights. And a lot of these events are, advertised towards women, and they don't really take into consideration about what men want. And it's the same thing that you see with the marketing towards women in Kenya. And so the men feel left out. It's the same thing that I see happening here in Uganda. And you buy a ticket to go into a club, let's say it's 1,500 Kenya shillings. That might be like $12. You're not just paying $12. I mean, you're paying to get into the club. You're driving there. You're buying drinks. You're buying drinks for some of the women that might be doing better than you. And largely, if you're broke and you're not doing good, you're talked about. I hear conversations between, Kenyan women and Ugandan women a lot, just in passing or, just checking out statuses. And, they're calling these dudes broke. They don't have anything. They're stingy. Kenyan men are this and Ugandan women are this. You hear it all the time, but nobody wants to spend money going to a club or a night outing, and you don't even have a lot of times the opportunity to even talk to these women in certain ways similar to what happens in the States. A lot of brothers remember going to the club in the 90s and 2000s, and you would go there, spend your money, and you try to talk to a female and it's not really working out for you. And this is the same situation happening right now with some of the brothers in Kenya. It's just not worth the money, and then you getting out there, you getting dressed up, women not gonna give you no attention. And then, some of these brunches are expensive. Like, let's look at the brunch here, right? This is Molecule here in Uganda. It's all you can eat, all you can drink brunch, okay? It's 175,000 Ugandan shillings pre-booking and 200,000 at the gate. This is about like a $50 to $60 brunch. And if you're a guy and you're making $200 a month, it's just not worth it, and you might not get no numbers, right? So it's a bad deal for a guy to go. Most guys rather go watch the soccer game, watch Arsenal, watch Manchester United, and have a beer, for a dollar or two and go home. Now, these same NGOs and women empowerment thing, it happens, all across the world, but this is a part of the worldwide agenda. It really happens here also in Uganda. Men's International Day never gets celebrated, International Men's Day, but you will always see International Women's Day. And it seems like women are getting all the opportunities, at least from the bird's eye view. Women's mental health is a really, really big issue, while men's mental health is not. So you're already seeing an imbalance with that. But let's go to number 2. Now, in the Black Manosphere, the community I was a part of, we had Kevin Samuels, and he was, basically leading the trend for us at a point. In Kenya, there's a guy by the name of Andrew Kibe, okay? And he was like their version of Andrew Tate. I covered him in 2022. And what I have found is, at least for the Gen Z guys, doing almost anything nice for a lady was considered like simping. I kept hearing that all the time. Oh, you buying this? No, I'm not a simp. I'm not going to take care of this person. I'm not a simp. I'm not simping. And so the culture amongst a lot of the, Kenyan guys that I've come across, it's not everybody, is that just even buying a drink for somebody in the club or buying a gift for somebody in the club that you don't know, that is simping, okay? And especially if you package that with the red pill, why am I going to buy something for a lady and she going to be messing with another dude anyway? I mean, the Kenyan guys got their own kind of version of the manosphere, and these are the topics that they talk about. And largely, a lot of American guys would agree, right? That's what we talk about, is why am I going to go out here and basically spend on somebody that, they demand money? And don't get it twisted, brothers. Just because you come to Africa, it's not like you won't get some entitlement. A lot of women in Africa that I've met believe that you're supposed to pay. It's your job to pay. You're trying to get to know her, so you must pay. So you need to pay, and there's no guarantee to whatever else. And she's dealing with somebody that might not be doing nothing for her. So that's simping. And that culture is even much stronger, I believe, in Kenya than it even is in America right now. Now, I haven't seen this in other parts of Africa. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but Kenya has their own version of the Black Manosphere or the Manosphere. And guys like, Andrew Kibe is one of the leaders, and they talk about this stuff in Shang and Swahili. It's hard to follow, but this kind of simping thing and taking care of women and spending money for women is looked at as simping, especially amongst Gen Z. Let's go to the third thing. Now, also, the dating tension that I would say in Kenya is stronger than what it is in Uganda. And the reason is a lot of women in Uganda, they are okay with the West, but Uganda has its own kind of culture and cultural norms that tend to not be as influenced by the West. So, they're not really on social media like Kenyans. They, culturally like, the Luganda music, stuff like that. Kenya does too, with their own artists and things like that. But Kenya is much more, influenced by westernized culture and what the women are doing. Women, they know all the trends. So if you go to Kenya, you see a lot of women with like dreads. You'll see a lot of women with tattoos. And you don't really see women with tattoos here in Uganda, but you'll see it there. Women are a little bit more open with their sexuality, talking about it. And you guys know I know that because I have the Pan-African Dating Show, and literally we couldn't even post certain clips because of what they were just talking about. It was so much different. So when you're influenced by what you're seeing in America, and you see a young lady with a Birkin bag in America, and you have a lady in Kenya that's maybe influenced by that, then the gender divide that's coming in from the States, maybe from Black Americans or Black diaspora in the States, you literally see it like coming into the Kenyan market, like almost the same thing. Like even the problems with single motherhood is on the rise. I played the clip earlier about, Kenyan men don't want to get married, and ultimately it leads to this. Now, again, you don't see a whole bunch of westernized influence, in Uganda. I mean, you see some, but like I've talked about, women in Nairobi have a lot of tattoos. They have a lot of the modernized, I would say more modernized dressing style than you might see in the States. It's more liberal, like the LGBTQ was way more wide open there than it is here. So Nairobi is more aspirational. And because there's such an income disparity in Nairobi and a lot of inequality, it's more inequality in Nairobi than in Uganda. Because in Uganda, many people are making, I would say, mostly around the same amount of money. But because you have big time NGOs, big banks, international companies that wouldn't even be here in Uganda, people are more aspirational. So unfortunately, as a man, you always get judged by the most aspirational thing. And so a lot of ladies in Nairobi can actually, can actualize some of the things they want because the economy is better. And if they see it coming from the West, then hey, they want it. I mean, this is one of the reasons why you see Don Julio doing so good in Nairobi. Bel Air does good in Nairobi, even in Uganda. I mean, you talk about the Hennessy has a real big market. The big time brunches are there. I mean, and it's just unfair to the normal working guy that can't keep up financially with this. Lastly, men are just not finding enough value in women in Kenya as they did before. And I know I'm gonna get criticized for saying this. I know that maybe I'm kind of misstepping my boundary, but it's what I have noticed with the bird's eyes view. Okay, I've seen basically Nairobi becoming like a little black America, or like very similar to what it is. It's still like a blend, but a lot of the men just don't find a lot of value in the current dating market. And then what you see is with the women, they want what they want and they're not willing to budge on what they want. They expect like, hey, not everybody, but I want a soft life. You should do this for me. And, unfortunately, some of the women in Kenya may not be interested into what the men want. And, men tend to still be the business owners. Women are good in business too, more so than Uganda. And that's another thing too. You have some of these women who are becoming very successful, more money in Kenya than it is in Uganda. And then some of these women can fly themselves to Dubai. Some of these women are doing very good. And then a lot of these men are being asked to pay for this and fund these lifestyles for these women. And there's not a whole lot that they would get from that. So that is also a big time problem. And I know this because Kenya is going through what I saw in the Manosphere 10 years ago. It's like watching it in a rerun. And you can't pay as a man for what you think that you're not getting. And when I talk to a lot of women in Uganda and Kenya, it's similar. The mentality is similar. I need this. He should do this for me because I'm me. And not taking into consideration the wider context of what these men are going through. A lot of Kenyan men are having it tough. It's a lot easier for them to make it in that country than it is in Uganda, I think. But, these men are supposed to be the providers, pay for things. And the culture of what you're seeing is a lot of the NGOs and the government are favoring women. So women are actually now, as it looks, in the next 10 years, might be making more than the men. And then the men still have all of these responsibilities to, go out and still be considered providers and protectors. And the men literally are getting nothing. It's nothing for Kenyan men. It's literally nothing for Ugandan men. It's no kind of programs that really deal with their mental health or mental crisis or anything. They're completely ignored here. And this is causing a bigger divide. And I'm going to tell you, in my own estimation, being a guy that was in the Manosphere and understanding what happened in the black community, it's the same thing about to happen in Kenya. And then largely what you get is the women bad mouthing their men. Our men are this, our men are lazy, our men are whatever. And they do it a lot. I hate to say this, but I see this happening a lot in front of foreigners. And I try to always tell them, you never disrespect your group of men, Ugandan or Kenyan men. You never talk about down on your men in front of foreigners, And so again, it's just not understanding these men and the issues that they're going through. And like I said, if the man can't do anything for them right now, they don't have time. And I could be wrong. I know you'll get in the comment section and roast me, but this is how I see it. And with that, I want to introduce this.
Really tired of this narrative that women see and view men as transactions in relationships. When did it become a fashion and a trend for men to just be ATMs? A man can't offer me this if he can't pay for this. The last time I checked, a relationship is a partnership. A partnership requires two. They form and build a relationship, combining to become one.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say this, but I'm just going to be real. As a foreigner, with the bird's eye view, and again, I don't understand everything, but a lot of these men are being looked at as just, what do you have? What can you give me? And I know a lot of the brothers that are in America can't fathom that, but it happens. In Uganda and Kenya, a lot of men have to be responsible for a lot of stuff. And hey, anywhere in the world, women don't want to hear why you don't have X, Y, and Z, why you don't have this, why you don't have that. Women just don't want to hear that. And so a lot of the guys are saying, listen, I'll just stay at home. I'll play my game. You see guys watching the soccer matches. I go to the bar, have a Tusker. If you're here in Uganda, have a Bell, have a Nile beer. And hey, I'll just go back home and, I'll do it like that. Or just get me somebody that's local and deal with her. And so men are just sort of giving up. Even with the Pan-African dating show, we have speed dating events. And it's so hard to get the men to come out a lot of times. And me, I don't mind giving the brothers a few drinks to get them started. You know, I'm a person that is, you know, I came from a men's content creation community, favoring men. So I know how hard it is. But sometimes guys don't even believe it. Like, yo, man, come out, I get you a few drinks. What? Like, they don't even believe it. And so that lack of trust, because, you know, Nairobi's aspirational. You know, you spend a lot of money going out. You know what I mean? And so there's just really where men are just giving up on brunches, speed dating, things that cost money. It's just not adding any value to their life. And this is the case worldwide. And Nairobi is just joining in on the worldwide trend. And if they're not careful, they're going to face the same problems that we've had in Black America for a long time. Single motherhood rates already up. Marriage is already down. And I believe that's because you see a lot of these women doing good and they believe they don't need the men anymore. And so the tension is stronger than what I see here in Uganda. Uganda is still more conservative. I don't know about Tanzania, but this is going to be a problem if they don't get this in line. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy Oshidu Jackson back at it again. I'm out.